I see millions whose daily lives in city and on farm continue under conditions labeled indecent by a so-called polite society half a century ago. I see millions denied education, recreation, and the opportunity to better their lot and the lot of their children. I see 1/3 of a nation ill-housed, ill-clad, ill-nourished. In the theatrical version, the curtain rose on a night scene of crumbling and tangled old law tenements, apartment houses, constructed before 1901, all of which were exempted from the health and safety laws that were being introduced in the early decades of the 20th century. Old law tenements were the cheapest housing to be had in New York, and, in Mayor LaGuardia's words, they were rotten, antiquated rat holes. Reviled as breeders of crime and disease, they were most notorious for being fire traps. The play's action begins with a little girl fetching water from a tap in the cellar and then lugging the heavy bucket up the stairs, as was standard in these apartments that had no running water or toilets, only outhouses in the backyard. Within minutes, the audience detects smoke filtering up from the cellar, and, as the fire begins to rage, the tenants scramble to wake neighbors and grab possessions. As a crowd gathers outside the building, a fireman works a searchlight, revealing a man hanging perilously from a broken fire escape. Cries from the crowd of "Look! Look!" compete with screaming sirens and clanging bells. Just as the man is about to fall, the stage goes black. The following scene opens at an investigative hearing into the cause of the fire. Before the action begins, a loudspeaker, the voice of the living newspaper, that is heard throughout the play, announces details of the real fire on which the scene is based. February 19, 1924, at 397 Madison Street on the Lower East Side, when 13 persons lost their lives, 4 men, 2 women, and 7 children. In the film adaptation by Oliver H.P. Garrett, whose credits include the melodramas Night Nurse, 1931, The Story of Temple Drake, 1933, and Manhattan Melodrama, 1934, the tenement fire remains central to the story, and portions of the investigation are also preserved. We find the same weary commissioner and inspectors from the fire department, the building department, and the tenement house department. In both the play and the film, these public servants pass the buck to another bureaucratic entity. Asked by the commissioner if the tenement was a fire trap, the housing inspector replies, "If that building is a fire trap, then so is every old law tenement in New York City, and there are 67,000 of them." He goes on to explain that the city hasn't got the manpower to keep track of the conditions in these decrepit buildings. Dismally, the commissioner concludes the hearing. "According to your testimony, there were no violations, and all the laws were scrupulously upheld," which was word for word the judgment of the real commission that investigated the Madison Street fire. The theatrical version of 1/3 of a Nation traces the history of slum housing from New York City's earliest days. The historical background begins with a landlord remarking to a slum tenant, "If you can only afford to pay $24 a month, you'll have to live in my house or one just like it, and you cannot blame me. You'll have to go back into history and blame whatever it was that made New York City real estate the soundest and most profitable speculation on the face of the earth." Beginning in 1705 with an English governor's land grant of 63 acres to Trinity Church, the theater piece instructs us that over time the church became one of the city's most egregious slumlords. We are presented with a lesson in Manhattan's population growth and private investment in land, and the decades of failed efforts by legislators, the courts, and private citizens to address dangerous slum conditions. Sanitary reforms go unenforced, court battles by tenant groups fail, and when progressives in the legislature finally attempt to allot money to the construction of public housing, their efforts are met with